Hey there, everybody. This is Jackson Wetzel, or JT Dubs,
And I'm Ivan Lichtenstein.
and you're watching/listening to The Film Pod. So, I know usually if you guys have watched The Film Pod before, we usually record our podcast in like a studio, and then we usually film with my camera alongside it and give you guys a visual of us talking. But due to the fact that Ivan and I do not live near each other anymore, and we do not see each other on a super regular basis, we figured the best way to get you guys regular content would be for us to live stream our podcasts on YouTube. Any thoughts on that, Ivan?
No, it's actually a really great format because in this way we're able to organize it a lot better beforehand, and we're gonna have a much more organized schedule of when we're putting out this content. Because normally it used to be that I would just call you up to come down here, but now it's like, oh, I can get my computer out, you can get your phone out or whatever, and then we can have actual like categorized content um going live.
Yeah, and let me explain a little bit of the new format. So, what we're going to try to start doing, and today doesn't really count as like a regular episode. Today, we're really just testing out how the audio sounds, how it all looks, and how it all plays out with using Google Hangout to stream onto YouTube. So, usually, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start up the show and we're going to do three reviews basically. Normally, on our old Film Pod episodes, we would do one whole video talking about one movie. But we decided since a lot of our reviews would get really long winded and we talk about a movie for like 30 or 40 minutes, people weren't really staying in tune and watching that the whole time. So, really, what we decided to do is we came up with the new like structure of the show. Basically, we're going to do three reviews, and after we finish recording all three of our reviews, we will upload each review individually, chopped up into a separate video on the channel. That way, for people who come back and want to watch just one particular review, they can. And usually, we're going to try to keep each review segment to about 15 minutes. So we'll do three 15-minute segments per episode. Then the last 15 to 20 minutes, we'll probably do a Q&A or talk further about some of the movies we liked, and essentially keep each episode around an hour. And then we'll have that hour-long show out, and then have the reviews split up, three reviews per episode. That way, there's sort of a variety of how people can watch our content. If they want to live stream it with us, watch the whole hour, they can. Or if they just want to watch one review, one 15-minute review or so, they can. So we have three different, I guess you'd say, categories for each of these films. So, Ivan, go ahead and tell them about the first one.
Yeah, so the first one that we have is gonna be a good movie, like a classic
No, no,
movie
no.
that we're
Our
using.
first one's going to be the new release, the Fresh, I
Oh,
think you said.
you want like an order? Oh, you want them in order?
Yeah, just tell them about the first one. I can tell them about the next one.
Yeah, so the first one's gonna be the new release. That's just like the title, a new release is in theaters. So the one that we have coming up currently is gonna be Ready Player One. So be on the lookout for our review of that.
Yep, sounds
All
good.
right, come on,
Also,
next one.
let's not spoil the other two, but we can say we'll review Ready Player One because that just came out. The other two we're gonna keep kind of secret for now. We'll probably release the first episode in like a week or two. It just depends on our schedules. But
Yeah,
we will try to let everyone know ahead of time when each episode is going to stream. I think we're going to try to do once a month for right now. We may eventually go up to twice a month because I know we've talked about we want to maybe have some guest stars, some guest like people on the show. So we may do that in addition to that. So yeah, our first segment though on the show will always be our new release, something that has come out in the last couple months that has come out in theaters. We'll talk about that. Our second category is a classic movie, so something that's not super new, something generally something that we like, and a lot of times we're going to try to do something that at least one of us hasn't already seen. That way we can get like a fresh perspective on it. But usually it'll be something from something older than 5 years or so, I would say. Um, and then Ivan, you want to tell them about the last category for the third one for
yes.
our show?
So the last category is a garbage movie, and you're probably wondering, out of like seeing a fresh movie and a really classic movie, why would we have a garbage movie? Well, one thing is variety, and also it's not going to be like a bad movie that's just going to be like obviously boring that we can't watch. It's going to be a movie so bad that it's good. So we've actually put some time and effort into watching a couple, so we're
Yeah, we've got a couple ready, so just imagine the worst trash you could find on Netflix, and we've basically been through it. So,
yeah, like, but it was fun while it lasted.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes I enjoy those really bad movies a lot. So, okay, so now that we've told you guys basically new format, one show a month. Obviously, this one doesn't count because it's just a test. But one show a month and 3 reviews per episode, each about 15 minutes long. They will be re-uploaded they're each like individual segments. So we'll have that. And then, so in addition to that, we might do a Q&A at the end or something. But basically expect at least one new episode of the Film Pod every month. We'll be sticking to a more regular schedule than we have in the past, where we kind of did like maybe 2 or 3 episodes a year. We didn't really stay very consistent because of having to do it in studio and have all that stuff together was very stressful. Whereas this is a very easy format for both of us to work with.
Yeah. So, no, that being said, this is going to be the new format, and personally, we think this is a much better format. So, with all that being said, I think they understand the format and basically how it's going to be organized. Let's just get right on into it.
Yeah, so today we're not going to follow the format that we're going to be planning
It's just going to be like a
going
much more
into.
flex format.
Yeah, today we're gonna talk about something just really light and just kind of you know talk about one specific topic that I know Ivan and I've been wanting to talk about is what is our favorite movie? Like, what is my favorite movie of all time? What is Ivan's favorite movie of all time? Because we've been doing this show for about 2 years and we never have gotten to talk about either of us have gotten to talk about like what our favorite movie is. So Ivan, do you want to go ahead and start talk about your favorite movie for a little bit, and then I can uh, take the floor and talk about
Yeah,
mine?
mine's kind of a two-parter because I don't really have like a. I've thought about it. I don't have like a definitive favorite movie, but if I were to choose one or like two, it would be No Country for Old Men and Pulp Fiction.
So, of those two, which one do you want to talk about tonight?
Pulp Fiction. Actually, you know what? Let's do No Country for Old Men because I've talked about Pulp Fiction a lot. I
Have
think
you
it's like a
talked
nice
about it?
project.
Have you talked about it at all on your channel or anything?
I haven't. I just feel like in life I've talked about it a lot, and I feel like I haven't done No Country for Old Men justice because that movie is fantastic, and I feel like everything I say with Pulp Fiction is gonna be things that people have already said about Pulp Fiction a million times. Not that
Yeah,
there's
it's
anything
it's
wrong
a
with
movie
it.
that has been discussed to death. I mean, it's one of the big
Yeah.
ones for sure. Okay, so you go ahead and talk about No Country for Old Men. I actually haven't seen that movie. I've been meaning to. So you take the floor. You tell me if you were trying to like sell this movie to me. Tell me why it is like the best movie ever in your opinion. And
Okay.
it's
So
obviously very subjective. Just tell me everything that you think is awesome about it.
just to give context to it, No Country for Old Men came out. I'm gonna say like over 10 years ago because I know it won Best Picture at the Oscars in 2008. Yeah, so it was released in 2007,
It's like 10 years
and
old then.
basically it's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's about the story of a guy who stumbles upon $2 million in in a like what am I saying satchel in a bag and a drug bust gone wrong, and so he's trying to like get the money and make a good living with it. But what he doesn't know that is that there's a tracker on the bag, and so it's already being tracked by this psychotic killer. And so basically, you think of it as like if you hear the plot synopsis, like, oh, this is a very like cliche like get 'em story. But the more you watch it, and the multiple times you watch it, it's a extremely layered story where it deals with the themes of pride, guilt, justice, and greed. Because the whole theme of the movie is that it's one man's greed gets in the way of his pride, and he's very prideful with his greed. And the way it's set up is that it's one of the most tense movies that's ever been released in theaters. I think it's the most tense movie that I've seen personally, and I've seen thrillers, and I've seen psychotic dramas, and I've seen horror movies, and this is what I would define as a dramatic thriller, and it's the most tense movie I've seen within any genre encompassing it. One of the things it does best with intention is just the setting of it. Like it's set in the 80s, and you believe it's set in the 80s just by like how things look, how characters interact, how characters look. Because the whole thing is based off of a book, and it's there's a lot in the book, and
Who's
there's
the
also a
author of
lot.
the book?
God, it's the same dude who wrote The Road. He's a famous
Oh,
writer. I'm gonna look it up real fast.
yeah, I was gonna say we have our computers here, so we can.
Yeah,
That's a great thing about this format is we can if we don't know something
his
we
like
can look it
name's
up.
like slipping my mind. Let's see. Cormac McCarthy.
Okay. And have you read the
Yeah,
book or read any of it? Or
I've been meaning to. I read part of it, but then I wasn't able to because others after it was a long time ago. I think it was like in high school when I started reading it.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's written by Cormac McCarthy. So there's a lot that they based off the book. But it's not like it's doing the book injustice because there are things in the book that really aren't told. So the directors like had their own interpretation of it. Like
That's
Javier
always
Bardem's
important to have.
character. What?
I said that's always an important thing when you're doing an adaptation. You have to make some changes. Otherwise, I mean, because movies just aren't structured the same way books are.
Yeah, I mean, like Javier Bardem's character, Anton Chigurh, like he's the psychotic. He's if you were to describe him, if I were to describe him to anyone in a general sense, I'd just say he's a psychotic, maniacal killer. And I've actually argued this that he's arguably a better villain than the Joker in The Dark Knight.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, Heath Ledger is better as the Joker, but in terms of like a villainous and heinous person, I would argue that Anton is much more of a villain.
Is he the same type of villain as the Joker? Because I mean, that
No,
if you look at different movies, there's plenty of different types of villains,
yeah,
and a lot of them
their
you can't
type
even
is
compare them
completely
to each
different.
other.
Their type is completely different, and like you said, it is subjective, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like when Javier Bardem is portraying Anton Chigurh on screen, it's like you don't see Javier at all. Like you see that character, and
Hmm.
it's weird because you understand what the movie is about and you understand like how the story works, but you cannot guess any of the plot points within the movie. It's a completely unpredictable movie because when you watch it, you are rooting for Llewellyn Moss, who's played by brilliantly by Josh Brolin, and he's more of the central character of the movie that you care for. He's the one who stumbles upon the $2 million. But then the more you watch it, you're like, okay, is he kind of insane too? Like, who do I side with? Because you don't really know. Like, this movie really has no character that is a good, sensible character. So that's what I love about it. It's nothing that you can side with. It's not predictable, and that gets you in more into the movie and more involved with it on how things work. And the way scenes are set up too is just amazing. Like even the tiniest little scenes are so meticulously like well crafted to make it look perfect. And I know
Hmm.
like not watching it like now you can't get a sense of that. Like when you watch it, you're like, holy shit! Like this is because this if this was done by a different director, it would not work. So it's just through direction and masterful crafting of the scene. And I've watched it a lot of times. I can just analyze certain parts of it.
How many times, if you could guess, would you say you've seen this movie?
Um, I would say about 8 times, 10 times, 20 times. But I've also like watched a lot of analysis videos on it, and then I've read certain things online.
Hmm.
It's just when you watch it, like it's not like an intense action movie where you're like waiting for the next explosion to happen. Like literally in the movie, I think one explosion happens and that's it. And it's just and that just relies on like the crafting of the scene and like the dialogue in the movie. It's an
Well,
extreme.
you know, unless you're Michael Bay, the amount of explosions you have in the movie is not necessarily a sign of quality or not.
You mean
So,
you mean fireworks?
yeah,
The skies of the
basically.
explosion. Excuse me.
Everything should just explode. That's my kind of movie I want to watch.
No, but it's just an extremely well crafted movie. It's the Coen Brothers' best movie, and if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that
Even
I intend to see in the
like
next
even if
like
you
month
don't
or two.
like thrillers, if you don't um like violence, it's definitely a movie you should watch to see how a story is portrayed on screen from an adaptation of a book. It's the best. Oh, I'll say this about it: it's the best book adaptation of a movie I've ever seen, for sure.
Really.
Yeah. But going back, like even if you don't like thrillers, even if you don't like violence, even if you don't like tension, you have to like watch it and like agree that like this is a meticulously well crafted movie that could not have been done by any other director, and like it cannot be remade.
Yeah, I mean, the Coen brothers are extremely talented. I mean,
Oh
they're up
yeah,
there, man. I mean, they really are. Like,
like they don't have to make another movie ever again. Like Fargo, No Country for Old Men, like they don't. They could make shit, and I would be fine with it.
yeah, I mean, like they've definitely achieved that status. I can give them that for sure.
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's my whole reasoning behind why I think No Country for Old Men, and also like its replay value is insane. Like even though I know like when the tense moments happen, even though I know when things are gonna happen now, it's still there's still stuff in the movie that I still pick up. I'm still learning about, and I'm
Hmm.
still tense when I watch scenes. Like here, I'll show you. It's not a spoiler or anything, and it doesn't have anything to do with the plot of the movie
Hmm.
overall. But it's I'll send it to you.
Or is there a way to screen share it? Maybe.
I can see
I'm not sure if it works the same way on live. You might be able
it
to.
doesn't.
Okay. Well, no, there's a screen share option right here. I see. Only question
Others.
is do we want to put for copyright purposes? I think it would be fine because it'll be a smaller screen, and if it's a very quick clip, it is probably okay. Especially since I'm no longer
Yeah.
monetized, so it doesn't
I
even really
mean,
matter, to be honest.
I'm uploading it from a someone who just is not even the copyright owner of this clip, so I think we're
Yeah,
good.
go ahead and screen share it. Share it with the audience, so maybe they can uh, grow some interest in the movie too if they haven't.
Yeah, let me figure out how to do that. Is it screen share? Oh, I see it right here.
Yeah, it's on the left.
Okay. How do I? Is it? Guess it's. Am I doing it? Yeah, I'm doing it right. Okay.
Whoa, there's me.
All right. So I'll just show you this one clip.
Yeah, do full screen.
Okay. Volume working.
Oh, I have seen this clip.
You have?
Yeah, I've seen this part of the movie. I think this is the only thing I've ever seen actually is just this clip.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
I'll just be quiet for now.
Yeah, and I'm actually not hearing any audio from it.
Huh.
But we can tell the viewers at home to check out that
Yeah.
particular clip on YouTube.
Yeah, just check this out. If you type it on YouTube, No Country for Old Men, call it coin tossing. It's a
Yeah,
fantastic
I
scene.
think I've
Even though it
definitely
has,
seen that
like I
scene.
said, like basically has nothing to do with the entirety of the movie. Well, there's a part of it that does, but it's super small. Let me put screen share off real fast.
Yeah, take that off. There
Okay,
we go.
stop sharing. There we go. Where am I? There I am. Okay,
You're back.
I'm back. But yeah, just type in that thing on YouTube and watch it. It's fantastic. I mean, like as soon as I load it up, you're like, oh, that's all that.
Yeah, I mean I remember that scene for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's that movie. Is it on Netflix actually? I
It's
feel like
not. Let me look
okay.
at for availability actually.
I feel like
Because
it might have been on there at one point though.
I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, like it's gotten. I just searched on Bing and it's gotten great reviews. Like
Oh,
it's
of
a
course.
91. It's like it has a 91 on Metacritic.
I mean, you said it won Best Picture, so of course it's good.
Yeah, like because everyone knows that the Oscars is truthful.
I mean, usually whatever wins Best Picture is at least a good movie, generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Oscars. We won't.
Well, if you have iTunes, you
We
can
could
get
do a
it.
whole we could do a whole episode on the Oscars, honestly. All that crap, but uh,
If
given
you
that
have
it's
iTunes, you can watch it, and if you have Amazon Prime Video, you can watch it.
okay, I wonder if it's on Google Play. That might actually be the best way for me to watch it since I have an Android.
Google Play. I can
Yeah,
see.
the Play Store.
I'm on it. I'm gonna get on it right now. Also, if you're watching this, you can hope potentially get it on Google Play.
Yeah, we'll just have to see.
See.
As if Google wasn't already sponsored enough in this episode. Got Google Hangouts, YouTube.
Okay. You can rent it for $1.99.
Yeah, Google Play is pretty good. Just in general, for anyone who wants to, watch a movie legally on your phone, Google Play is always a good option. They're usually pretty cheap and good quality, from my experience anyway.
Yeah, I never even like looked at this that much.
Oh, they got tons of movies. They got like everything on there. I mean, Google Play is awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no.
Video not sponsored by Google, but if you want to sponsor us, go for it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another thing Ivan we did talk about. Do we want to get some kind of sponsor for the Film Pod? Because we're definitely not making any money from YouTube now that I know at least I'm not monetized. I don't know if you're monetized on here anymore, but
Nope, not anymore. Not
yeah,
since Logan Paul.
anyone who hasn't seen our Logan Paul video that's on my channel, you should definitely check it out. We make fun of that guy pretty hard.
I mean, like, after the whole incident happened, I got an email from YouTube that was sent out to like almost every user saying, "Hey, if you don't have this criteria, you're not monetized. So therefore, I'm not."
Is it like 4,000 hours or something?
I don't know. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's really stupid. Anyway, so are you done with talking about your movie? Is there anything else you want to say?
Go watch it. That's all I'm gonna say. It's on Google Play. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on iTunes. And buy the DVD. Buy the DVD if you're one of those people like me that buys DVDs and makes collections.
Yeah, I actually didn't start buying Blu-rays until like last year, and honestly, like I love buying Blu-rays in particular now. I used to buy just DVD, but once I got a PS4, I was able to actually play Blu-ray, and like at first I thought people were exaggerating about the difference of quality, but Blu-rays look pretty nice. And now that they're going down in price, I'd actually recommend like buying more movies on Blu-ray. Beforehand, I never would have because they used to be like really expensive.
Yeah, I mean,
and oftentimes they come with a DVD copy too, so and a digital copy. So I mean,
well, now you got the case where it's like you get the DVD. Well, now you got the case where it's like the DVD copy, the Blu-ray copy, and a 4K HD copy too. Because then we have 4K TVs.
Yeah, true. Too bad 5K doesn't exist yet, Ivan.
Too bad.
Maybe one day.
Hopefully so.
I don't even know what the difference would be, to be honest. I have to look into that technology more.
So you're watching Godzilla and like the creature just like pops on the screen and eats your fucking hand.
For each. Oh, Ivan. So I guess we are cussing now. Since
you said it slipped.
It's okay. We could always if we cuss during the live stream, we could always like bleep it out during the like videos that are uploaded after. I mean, I'll say this now for anybody watching. I don't fucking care if we cuss, but Ivan's often like, "Oh, I don't know if I want this video of me saying fuck on the internet because he's like potential job offers might not go through to me. I'm trying to be professional here, Jackson." And I'm like, "We're film majors. We're gonna be pretty crude sometimes. I think most people on YouTube generally are pretty crude, especially nowadays."
I mean, yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't really matter to me. So I guess it's my turn to talk about my favorite movie. And it should be no surprise for anybody who knows me. But my favorite movie is not really just one movie. And I know I said we're supposed to talk about one movie tonight. But this really is just one movie that's three movies. So yeah. I'm going to talk about Lord of the Rings because holy shit, it's my favorite like movie series / film like of all time. It's been that way since I was 6 years old. I know that's like a nostalgia kind of argument or whatever, but like I said before at the beginning, it's all subjective. It really, I'm not even saying that Lord of the Rings is the best made movie of all time or like the best quality movie, but it is my personal favorite subjectively. So before I go into my long spiel about it, Ivan, how familiar are you with Lord of the Rings? I feel like you told me maybe you saw one of them. You didn't see all of them though, I think.
I have seen the first one and part of the second one, but I do understand like the lore of Lord of the Rings and like things that go behind the making of it. I understand that Peter Jackson literally spent like a year like planning out the setting of the movie, and then he spent like another year like for years shooting it.
Yeah, I mean, the production of Lord of the Rings goes back to like the late '90s. I know they actually began shooting it in '99, I believe, and the film didn't even come out till 2001, end of 2001.
Yeah.
And even then, that was only part one of three. Basically, Fellowship of the Ring, first one came out in 2001. I think it was December. I was too young. I didn't see any of them in theaters. Then Two Towers came out in 2002. I think it was also December, and then Return of the King was 2003. And also, like your favorite movie, Return of the King won Best Picture in 2004, I believe. So both of our picks have won Best Picture, which again, the Oscars don't mean anything, but that's still pretty cool.
Well, it's also like kind of not unlikely, but like uncommon for a movie like Lord of the Rings to ever win Best Picture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if any other fantasy movie has ever won Best Picture. And that's a big thing about Lord of the Rings too. Is I was even watching some videos today on Lord of the Rings. The scope of how fantasy films were before Lord of the Rings and how blockbuster movies were before Lord of the Rings, completely different from how they are today. In addition to that, franchise movies are done completely different because of Lord of the Rings. It truly was a revolutionary trilogy in every sense of the word. I mean, it's certainly comparable to the original Star Wars trilogy, but I think that trilogy, I'd say they were both very influential in similar ways, but also in very different ways. I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy really was, for the early 2000s, what Star Wars was for like the early 80s, really, when you look at it. Because the scope of these films is absolutely insane. I mean, each film is at least 3 hours long, and I think the last one is like 3.5 hours long. They're insanely long. No other movie.
Yeah.
There had been long movies like that before, but it was certainly not common like it is today to have a 3-hour movie in theaters. I mean, Titanic, I think, was 3 hours.
Yeah, like
it was a couple of years. No, I'm talking before Lord of the Rings. Titanic was 3 hours.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Apocalypse Now. Don't count
but
the
not commonly though. It wasn't a common thing.
Yeah.
Like it's more common nowadays for sure, because Lord of the Rings. I mean, because it was a huge influence. And just like I said, with fantasy, that genre was very underrepresented for a while. I mean, look at what we got after Lord of the Rings. We got Game of Thrones, which is huge now. The Harry Potter movies were coming out around the same time, and I mean, just fantasy as a whole was just not a big like genre of film like it is now. I mean, fantasy is much more common now, because beforehand, I think a lot of the I think the effects were, and the filmmaking, that technical process was just in a lot of ways sort of like Star Wars was just not ready yet until a big player came into the scene and really showed everyone like that this genre could be amazing. And invested. So I haven't even talked about the actual films yet. I mean,
to it, which is pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to look at the fact that, at this time, you had, the occasional fantasy films released in like the 80s and 90s. I mean, we got, there was like Willow and Princess Bride, and, most of them were more or less kind of cult hits. They weren't big names, like big blockbusters yet. I mean, I know Princess Bride is hugely beloved now, but I think at the time it was had more of a cult following, and I don't know how well it did at the time, to be honest. But as a whole, that genre was just very underrepresented at the time. So before the movies were made, Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbit book, J.R.R. Tolkien's works were highly beloved. The Hobbit was written in the 30s, and Lord of the Rings was written in the 50s, I believe. And they just they really paved the way for modern fantasy and just how detailed a world could be. And the world of Middle Earth was highly developed and crafted by Tolkien to an extreme amount. And it really shows very well in these movies, because the movies, I think, really did capture I think just that how big that world is and how amazing that world is.
Oh no, like
It was not the movies were not paced like the books were. To give context, I have not read all three of the Lord of the Rings books. I have read the entirety of the first one and most of the second and third ones, but I did skip a few chapters here and there because it was very dense. But The Hobbit is like my favorite book of all time, and I've read it multiple times and absolutely love it. But essentially, though, yeah, these books were huge and had a huge fan base in adult fantasy for several years. So really, by the time the Lord of the Rings came out, they were Peter Jackson was pushing to make them in the late '90s, and originally he was pushing it to different studios. He was originally going to sell it as he wanted to do The Hobbit in one movie and then Lord of the Rings in two movies, and essentially, he was just trying to sell Lord of the Rings as like a two-movie series. And he goes to New Line Cinema, late '90s, and they say to him, "Well, we're gonna do it. We're gonna produce this movie for you on one condition, that you make it three movies instead of two." So, obviously, and then Peter Jackson didn't end up making The Hobbit until 10 years later or whatever. And we'll talk about The Hobbit
yeah,
at
that's
some
a part
point.
of the whole like not that's a part of the whole like I guess film lineage that I wasn't understanding completely because like with the Lord of the Rings, like he literally had so much freedom and so much time to like make them.
Hmm.
Whereas like with the Hobbit, it's like okay, you got a couple of months, even
Well,
though you made a Best Picture winning movie and grossed all this money for the studio.
and I would like to have a separate episode where we talk about The Hobbit because I actually watched the first Hobbit movie again the other day, and I will say, even though it's very flawed, I do enjoy it. I did not really enjoy the other two Hobbit movies as much, but the thing about that trilogy was just the Hobbit trilogy really had a lot of issues that was just not present in Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was a passion project by Peter Jackson, and he was so passionate about making this story happen and making this giant behemoth of a film trilogy happen. When it came to The Hobbit, he was not originally supposed to be the director. He sort of got pressured into it by the studio because Guillermo del Toro was originally going to direct it, and he ended up leaving the project. And again, we'll talk about The Hobbit more tonight. The Hobbit films are not my favorite films of all time. There's some enjoyable things in them, but they're not amazing movies. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is amazing, and I'll just go ahead now and start talking more about the actual films because I've gone and on about the backstory. But
Yeah.
there's a lot to this series. But let me just start by saying what I think is amazing about these films, this trilogy, is that they capture the spirit, I think, of the books very well. And granted, I saw the movies way before I read the books. I was very young. I was like 6 when I was introduced to this. I think I watched all three of them like right after Return of the King had come out on DVD. I was very young. But the thing about these movies though is that they really do capture the spirit, I think, of the books, because even though the books were very long and very a little strenuous to get through, they were so lore heavy, but Tolkien really had great heart in these stories. The he understood sort of the spirit of all these different species and races living in this world. The hobbits were a very simple folk who were mostly enjoyed living a good life and very simple life. They were not fighting wars or going on adventures. He understood how graceful and majestic the elves were, and how the men represented very much how humans are viewed. He understood the intricacies of the dwarf world, and how the culture of the orcs came about, and the wizards, all the cool things they did, and their role in Middle Earth. Like, he had just such a great understanding of his own world that he created. The type of world that he had a greater understanding of than I think any other fictional like universe that I can think of, because he really was at the helm of all this. So Peter Jackson took, I think, it all really to heart, and he gave us, I think, like these characters and worlds that were really just like so well thought out and the way these characters and races interact together, and how they're coming together against this great threat. And Lord of the Rings, even though, yeah, you could argue, oh, there's a lot of stuff in there that's probably considered filler. Everything in there richens that world a lot, and gives you a broader scope of things. But you have that, and then you have just the fact that, like, these films really take their time, and they give you slow moments that are, like, necessary. Like, a big trope with modern film nowadays, I think, is that everything is so fast paced and going so fast, and it's just like it's exhausting to watch a lot of movies now. The Lord of the Rings movies knew when to take certain things slow and to just let the characters breathe in this world, and I think it was absolutely brilliant that they did that, because you really grow to care about these characters over the course of 3 movies. I mean, you care about these characters about as much as you care about, like, characters in a TV show that you watched for like 9 years. I mean, like, the movies are that long and have that much in it that you really get a great sense of these characters. And the arcs that the characters go on are great. You have I won't spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen Lord of the Rings, but you have just these great character arcs of all these characters, and Peter Jackson really has been great at knowing, like, just sort of like what arcs are great for these particular characters, whether they were in the books or not. He always gave each character something to do for the most part, and I think it made a very dynamic and interesting cast. And on top of that, the cast is absolutely stellar. Very well cast films. Uh, I will talk also about a little bit about the visuals. I think these films show that if CGI and practical effects are mixed very well and very carefully, that these types of effects can, like, age very well. If you look at movies that were coming out at the same time in the early 2000s or late 90s, like the Star Wars prequels, the CG in those
It's
films
laughable.
yeah. I mean, Revenge of the Sith looks decent, but the other two look really bad by today's standards, and will continue to look worse. Um, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there are some moments that, like, are kind of uncanny valley, but for the most part, the CGI is mixed very well with the practical effects, and it makes the world feel very real, like you really are there. Mixed with very great sound, sound quality, and sound mixing, as of course, and the score. The score is, oh my god, holy shit! Just those songs can create just absolute emotion in me. But yeah, I mean, you have these really, like, the films sound great, they look great, especially for the time. I mean, they're revolutionary, absolutely, for the time, but even today they look great. And you can even tell sort of the difference between them and The Hobbit. I mean, The Hobbit is such a CGI fest. It's too bad that Peter Jackson didn't have that sort of time he had with Lord of the Rings, because it really shows. And some of the CGI looks great in The Hobbit, like, the dragon and Gollum.
I
The
never even watched
motion
those
capture.
movies, so I have no
Yeah,
comment.
yeah. I mean, that's more of a series I'd have to talk about by myself, because you wouldn't really have much to say about them. But I have a lot of opinions. But going back to the special effects and the motion capture, oh my god, Gollum for 2002 looks amazing. And, like, the effects they did with Andy Serkis and how they created that character who had never been seen on film before, like, and that type of character had not really been done very much in film at the time. I mean, there was very little motion capture, and that film really paved the way for motion capture in film. I mean, the Planet of the Apes movies wouldn't be possible. Like, the great effects in those movies would not be possible without films like Lord of the Rings. And Andy Serkis has been a great actor to try out
Oh
all those
yeah,
effects with. He has really pushed a lot in terms of that technology as an actor. He's been very involved in that. So I don't have a ton else to say. I mean, obviously, I could talk about the movies for. I mean, I could talk about those movies for hours. Obviously, I love the story. I love the themes in the story. I mean, this, if you don't know, it's set in Middle Earth, and it's about this hobbit named Frodo, and he is given this magic ring by his uncle Bilbo, and the ring basically is this all powerful ring that was
it
from.
represents a lot of power, pretty much.
Oh yeah, power and
Like,
temptation, um, and that's sort of one of the main themes of the series that they do very well is the corruption of power and how sometimes it's the people who are just have them the people who are simple and good can oftentimes make the biggest difference in the world just by being good people. It's not about being powerful. It's about it's um, there's so many themes there though with that, and then there's sort of some Christian undertones a little bit, but it's never actually addressed in the films. It's not like Chronicles of Narnia where it's very like obvious. Lord of the Rings just has a lot of like allegories for Christian themes and biblical themes and whatnot. Um, but it's very much its own thing, and I think Tolkien, he was Catholic. He took a lot of inspiration from his faith, obviously, and from his experiences in World War One. And the end of the series deals a lot with sort of the PTSD that goes on with that, and it's just very interesting, all of his opinions on it. But really, really great series that I think so many of those themes can just be applied in life every day, with the wars that we're constantly fighting in real life, and with the conflicts and just sort of darkness that we have to deal with as a society in the world today. And always, these themes are very, very prevalent, and the characters are amazing, and the characters all sort of represent different things, but they're also very dynamic. They're not one note characters for the most part. Just absolutely very well written, well shot, amazing effects. I mean, these are, like I said, a behemoth of a trilogy of films. Absolutely outstanding. And maybe someday I'll go into more detail about my individual thoughts, but I think as a whole, I've more or less communicated all of my major thoughts. I did have one question for you before we go, though.
yes.
So, why did you not finish the Lord of the Rings films? Because I remember when I watched them, I was absolutely like ready to start the next one. Like, and I mean, I understand that the length and all the stuff in there, all the lore might not be
Yeah.
for everybody, but I was blown away by it as a kid and still am. So I don't
Oh, me
know.
too. Like, well, when I watched the first one, I thought it was fantastic and I loved it. I think I was just busy with something else at the time because it's not just with Lord of the Rings, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
literally with any movie I watch. Like, if I have like The Godfather Part Two, I've seen The Godfather Part One, and it's amazing and fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I just have not had time to like watch the second one, or I have, but then stuff's got in the way that I want to watch other movies. Because my thing is, I want to watch as many movies as I can, and it's humanly
Definitely.
impossible to watch every single movie ever released.
Well, you don't want to
That you would
see
want to
every
see at
movie ever
least.
released.
That you would want to see at least.
Yeah, true. Um, how
So
old
something
were
I
you?
don't want
How
to
old were
watch.
you? How old were you though when you watched it?
Oh, it was like a couple of years ago. It wasn't too long.
Okay. Yeah, you see, I grew up with these movies, so it was like, I think I
Yeah,
watched them.
I
I
don't
watched
have
them
that
about
though.
once a year, honestly, for a while.
Well, it's funny because I actually bought not Fellowship of the Ring. I think it was the Two Towers
Mhm.
director's cut, like with bonus content for like $1 at a garage sale.
Yeah, I mean, so it was just the one movie by itself, the theatrical
Yeah, but
release.
it was like I was like in elementary school when I got it.
Yeah, I remember I got the VHS of Two Towers when I was very little. Um, thing is I now have, and I've had these for years, but I have the full box set. Actually, let me go get it real quick, just because I'll show you how big it is. But it's basically like the extended editions, which
Right.
for people who aren't like maybe the average moviegoer, they might not want to watch them. But the extended editions absolutely flesh out the films even better than they already did. Let me go get it real quick. Let me just show how big this extended edition is.
All right. For those of you who have not heard, Jackson's getting his Lord of the Rings box set edition. See how much it is actually. I'm gonna search on Google. I'm searching on Google Lord of the Rings box set
What's that?
edition.
What's that?
I'm going to Google and typing in Lord of the Rings box set.
So right here is the complete extended edition box set. You got basically all three of these is it's meant to look like the books, but each one is the film, and basically each one has 2 discs because there's just so many bonus scenes in there. The special extended edition, and yeah, there's just a lot in there, and then of course it comes with all the behind the scenes stuff. But they are, I think like each of these might have like 4 discs in them. Let me see. Let me get it out. But yeah, you've got all this.
Oh my God.
All this craziness. Yeah.
It's like a centerfold for a magazine.
Yeah, dude, this is all this right here, this is the first movie.
Oh wow.
But well, the first 2 are just the movie, and then the other 2 are the all the bonus material and all that.
That's still a lot.
Oh, absolutely. It's, I mean, like I said, these films are just gigantic. But you know, I think that's one thing too that sticks out about these films too, is it's just like I don't know if there's been a more ambitious film trilogy out there. Because as much as I love the original Star Wars trilogy, I mean, and I'd compare it to Lord of the Rings too, you know, and nothing comes close to this size for anything for 3 movies. I mean, you know, there's like 8 Harry Potter movies, and maybe they'd have a big box like that, but for 3 movies, that's pretty giant.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, well, Lord of the Rings is a much more expensive story than Harry Potter in a written form.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, as much as I loved reading the Harry Potter books and I enjoyed the movies, I will say that the world of Lord of the Rings is like, the universe is so much more expansive and so much more interesting. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's fully fleshed out. The Harry Potter universe is, while I have enjoyed Harry Potter quite a bit, you know, the universe is not that level of expanded. It probably never will be, but yeah, that's all about all I had to say really, was just, I mean, I definitely think at some point, you know, maybe during a summer or a break or something where you and I hang out, we should definitely, even if it's not all at once, we should definitely tackle watching all 3 Lord of the Rings at some point, because I think you should definitely experience it. I mean, and here's the thing, you know, these movies were equally as beloved by Tolkien fans as they were by general audiences. I mean, my parents are not even really into most fantasy or sci-fi type movies, but I mean, my parents watched all 3 of them with me like once a year, like as a kid. And so I mean, like, there's definitely a lot to be said about just how beloved these films were and still are today. And I think, like, while I can't recommend it to everybody, because I think, especially now, given how oversaturated everything is, people's attention spans might not hold for a 3-hour movie, or 3 3-hour movies for that. But to anyone who likes movies, anyone who likes cinema, these are an experience unlike any other that everyone should at least try once, honestly.
I was also going to tell you, well, this is a general question. What is Peter Jackson going to do next?
I have no idea, because he kind of butchered The Hobbit, so I don't know if I want to see him do anything.
Well, the thing is, I'm on his Wikipedia page.
Okay.
And he really has nothing in production as far as directing goes.
Yeah, he produced District 9, I know.
He produces a lot.
Did he direct The Lovely Bones, or did he produce that? I don't remember. I know that movie was hated.
He directed it.
Yeah.
He directed it, produced it, and wrote it.
Yeah, that actually, I was watching something on Peter Jackson earlier. Apparently, he started up his career a lot like how Sam Raimi did, with a lot of you know, sort of B-list horror movies, which is kind of interesting, because I think that I've personally found that the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the original Spider-Man movie trilogy, while they're very different, extremely different, I think they both have a lot of similarities, especially just because of how filmmaking in general was at that current state in time. You know, they both came out same decade, around the same years. Because the thing is they both did a lot of things that if other movies did would be considered really cheesy, but because of that heart that was behind it, and that passion, they really made it like acceptable and interesting. Obviously, the Spider-Man trilogy is a bit more campy and cheesy than Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings definitely has its campy moments for sure that wouldn't be in there if the films were made now. I mean, it's been close to 20 years. Certain moments that an over reliance on slow mo, especially, would not really fly today. But both Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi both were very, very passionate about their work, and I could definitely see some similarities between the two, given the sort of time frame they were both working. But yeah, Peter Jackson hasn't really done that much since. I mean, in terms of directing, I think really the Lord of the Rings was his ultimate passion project, and he got him made. And I think in The Hobbit he got sort of screwed over in terms of that series, and maybe they could have been amazing films too if he had been given the time. But sort of like what you were saying with the Coen brothers, I don't care if Peter Jackson makes another movie again. He gave us Lord of the Rings, and that's all I get. That's all I care about. I mean,
yeah, great directors make great movies. Some of them don't have to make anything great ever again because they're just remembered by not one thing, but like many things to a industry.
Well, and I mean, I would even relate as someone who has made my own films, like certain projects you do have more passion for than others. Others you might make because it seems fun, or you might, be brought in by someone else to make it. But those few projects you do get that are like your baby, that you care about every detail about, and you're so particular about, like, those often are your best films, and you don't have to always make those films forever. You might not. You might only be passionate about a few of your films, and other ones you might just make because they're fun or for a paycheck or whatever. I mean, much as I hate to say it, like, you can only be passionate about what you are going to be passionate about, and
absolutely,
you don't always get the opportunity to make stuff you're passionate about. I mean, even the professionals don't. I mean, it's a business like anything else, sadly.
All right.
Yep, I think that's all I had to say. Ivan, you have anything else? Awesome. Yeah, we ended up going for like an hour. I know we talked about just doing 30 minutes, but I guess talking about your favorite movies isn't something you can just do for a really short amount of time. But
you really can.
Like I said, though, guys, next time we do an episode, we will be live streaming again, like we did today, and we are for sure going to be doing our new format of three reviews. They're going to all be quick, like 15 minutes, and I think really that's going to be a great new format. And we're going to also just sort of see how things go. We're going to keep trying to build and progress and make this format work and make continuously improving videos overall for you guys. So that's all I have to say. Anything from you, Ivan?
No. It's all good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for watching the Film Pod. My name is Jackson Witzel, or JT Dubs.
I'm Ivan Lichtenstein. Just Ivan.
Just Ivan. Van Man Licorice. And you've been watching the Film Pod. See you guys next time. We will let you guys know when the episode's going to come out. We'll definitely give more notice next time. But today was just a test, so. All right. See you guys next time.